Hello and welcome to the big picture. The advent of the new BJP-led NDA government at the centre has led to inevitable speculations and discussions about the role of BJP's ideological parent, the RSS. While the RSS has always claimed that it has no role in politics and it was essentially a social and cultural organization, it has convinced few. Speculation about its role in government formations and choice of leadership has continued unabated. Now the speculation about its role in the running of the government has begun. The meeting on Tuesday of 5 ministers holding key portfolios with RSS leaders as well as leaders of its affiliate organizations has added to this speculation. The RSS leaders have also met HRD Minister Smriti Irani today. This has led to parallels being drawn with the National Advisory Council led by Sonia Gandhi during the UPA government. Incidentally, NAC was much maligned and criticized by the political rivals, though its supporters had a lot of appreciation for some of the work it had done. So is RSS now becoming the NDA government's NAC? We will discuss this today with Professor Pushpesh Pant, political analyst and a former professor, Nalin Kohli, national spokesperson of the BJP, Vinod Sharma, political editor, Hindustan Times, Dr. Ashwani Mahajan, national co-convener, Swadeshi Jagran Manch, and Smita Gupta, associate editor, The Hindu. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Mahajan, I would like to come to you first. Your organization was also supposed to have been the part of the meeting which took place on Tuesday with the 5 ministers. What was this meeting about?
Yes. It was basically a meeting for better understanding on the issues pertaining the nation on economic matters.
So what is it that, when you say that, was it to get clarity? Was it to offer advice? What is it that you people were supposed to have done? And what did the ministers have to say about all that?
In fact, see, these are the meetings which usually take place, and there is nothing special about it. The only thing is that earlier these meetings used to take place during NDA regime also, NDA 1.
Right.
And this time there are various issues pertaining the nation on economic matters. Say there are issues related to labor laws, there are issues related to the agriculture, there are issues related to cooperative sector and IPR and the foreign investment and so many issues. So for better understanding on these issues, this meeting took place.
Better understanding. Professor Pushpesh Pant. And
yeah.
In all fairness, as Mr. Mahajan was pointing out, this was something which had happened in the past also, during the NDA 1, though it may not have happened in such an organized manner as it seems to be happening now. Do you see any problem with this kind of meetings?
I don't see any problem at all. It was foreseen and it was foretold and it is happening, and I see no reason why a government of a particular party, majority, should be...
What was foreseen?
What was foreseen is that when BJP comes to power with a clean majority, it would follow a set of policies which may not be quite in consonance with the policies followed by the UPA 1 and 2. They would not follow the same clichetic, secular, democratic, human liberal policies. And it was probably foreseen by everybody, including those who voted in favor of Mr. Modi, that there was going to be a paradigmatic policy shift. That's number one. Number two, that nobody imagined that once Mr. Modi and BJP come to power, they will sever the umbilical cord which they have with the RSS. Number three, which I think the problem is that anybody with an iota of intelligence in this country probably now realizes that Mr. Modi is not as dependent on RSS as the venerable Atal Bihari Vajpayee in the NDA 1 was. He doesn't have the kind of constraints. He has won an electoral victory on partly on ideology, but very partly on ideology, mostly on charisma and his own credibility as a leader. So I think Mr. Modi is in that fortunate position where he doesn't need to have a broad-based consensus about policy issues and their implementation priorities. RSS might like to think that it is advising and running it with a remote control. I would like to submit that as far as I am concerned, there's a remote control without cells anymore inside. So Mr. Modi is very much running as a captain skipper of his ship, which this country doesn't seem to have too many problems with, as the elections recently in Maharashtra and elsewhere have shown. Just leave out the by-elections in UP and Bihar, some seats in Madhya Pradesh, Uttarakhand, but I think by and large he has carried the states of Haryana and Maharashtra with him, and most people are willing to give him a little more time. I do not think that he needs an NAC like the UPA did.
Before I go to Nalin Kohli, Mr. Mahajan, would you agree with that? Would you agree with the assessment of Professor Pushpesh Pant that even if you people try to be a remote control, it will be a remote control without batteries?
We don't think, and we don't want to be of this sort. In fact, these are the organizations, let it be Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh, Bharatiya Kisan Sangh, or for that matter Swadeshi Jagran Manch. We have been fighting for certain issues during NDA 1 regime, before that earlier regimes, and in UPA 1 and UPA 2 we have been fighting against FDI in retail. We have been fighting for public health issues. We have been fighting for GM, and similarly Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh, Bharatiya Kisan Sangh and other organizations, they have been raising their concerns even during the UPA regime and earlier regimes as well.
Okay.
Therefore, whenever a government comes or government is functioning, it seeks advice from various quarters. And
Absolutely.
you know, even during budget making, finance minister talks to so many people. Therefore, there is nothing of that sort that somebody is acting as a remote control, or one needs to be, or one should be. This is not the issue.
Okay.
In fact,
Mr. Mahajan, Mr. Mahajan, sorry.
Have certain
Mr.
opinions.
No, Mr. Mahajan.
Yeah.
Mr. Mahajan, sorry, I'll come back to you because you were mentioning about FDI, GM crops and things like that. It's quite interesting that you people, the Swadeshi Jagran Manch, at least has taken some stand which is not really in consonance with what the government is thinking or planning to do. Please stay on, I'll come back to you. Nalin, the question is this. If we go by what Professor Pushpesh Pant says, then is all this a cosmetic exercise which is going on?
I think it is because we are trying to look at models that don't exist from the spectacles of models that used to exist.
No, the model we are talking about is NAC.
I've answered it because I followed the debate carefully.
Yeah.
So I know where you're coming from. I'll answer all the questions. Let's go one by one. That the RSS is the ideological organization and the BJP has an umbilical cord on ideological issues is a reality. It's never been denied. It's always been accepted. So do a set of other organizations like the Swadeshi Jagran Manch, VHP, Bajrang Dal, many others. These organizations like the BJP are independent to pursue what is dear to them. We all do. We agree on some issues. We've also disagreed on other issues. But that is how organizations function. Now, next is when you compare it, if there is a meeting or if there is even an interaction, that does not mean there is a dictation that government policy has to follow from it. Government policy may or may not, just as government may meet CII, FICCI, individuals, foreign agencies, get inputs, suggestions, accept some, not accept some, keep some pending. That is the prerogative of the government of India, whoever is in government. Now let's come to the last point. When you say let's compare it with the NAC of the National Advisory Council was a creation where a cabinet status was given, people were appointed, they were given perks, there were government orders, a secretariat out of the government. The RSS is no such beneficiary, and as far as my understanding is, the RSS doesn't desire to even remotely be a beneficiary of this kind of largesse from any government. So I think comparisons are happening because everyone would like to find a remote control in the BJP just because in the Congress government a remote control existed. The ideological existence has always been there and the links are there. But to straight away link it to a remote control, I think is a little tad, maybe a presumption that is not correct.
Okay, presumption. Vinod, is it a presumption?
Well, you see, Nalin speaks so persuasively that at times I start thinking that I am agreeing with him, but I'll point out certain.
You will start thinking.
I start thinking that I am at end up agreeing with him.
Carefully, I start thinking that I am agreeing with him.
But
I'm glad to have you thinking, sir.
May I disagree with him most respectfully and point out he's made an argument which I thought was a bit, it amused me a bit. He says RSS is not a organization, it can't be compared with NAC because it doesn't seek any perks, its people don't seek any ministerial positions. They only seek extra constitutional authority. Point number one. Point number two.
This was exactly the charge against the NAC also.
No, and point number two. In fact, the RSS intervention in governmental affairs, or its influence, let's put it like that, if not intervention, is not even comparable with the Communist Party's influence or intervention when their governments are running in states. It is not even comparable there because Communist parties contest elections. The question that was posed to the RSS is that RSS has all the while insisted that it's not a political animal, it's not a political creature, that it's a socio-cultural organization. And if I may point out to you that this meeting that has happened now between Bharatiya Kisan Sangh and Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh and the Swadeshi Jagran Manch, this meeting has happened in the backdrop of certain labor reforms announced by the Prime Minister, about which he hadn't even cared to consult them before he announced them. So there was an element of disenchantment amongst these organizations. They may not say it on record now that they have had interaction with the government.
In fact, BMS representatives who have been on this program have made it open that they were opposing the government on some of the issues.
So, point number two. Point number three, if you look at the most respectful Mr. Mohan Bhagwat's speech, which was telecast live, almost in the form of a presidential address, that he disagreed with the notion of FDI. And he said that countries which can aspire for a future that is secure should be generating wealth of their own.
No, in fact, Swadeshi, I'm sure Mr. Mahajan would agree with what you're saying. He also follows that.
Yeah, precisely. So what I'm saying is that, and Professor Pant said that Mr. Modi doesn't need the RSS. The fact is that Mr. Modi is the creation of the RSS, unlike as much Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, because he was running a coalition government that was being run on the strength of his persona. And he was a man, together with Mr. Advani at that point in time, who was in seniority almost equal to the RSS leadership, and he used to have open spats with Mr. Dattopant Tangadi because he was senior to him. Dattopant was senior to Mr. Vajpayee, and the Swadeshi Jagran Manch at that point, and we used to feel that Swadeshi Jagran Manch is raising the red flag far too often in order to keep the opposition space for the Sangh Parivar. And I think the same thing may happen again. Broadly, within there'd be an agreement, there would be some minor differences here and there, but they will keep on protesting in order to keep the opposition space, a part of it at least, when they are going to go and amend the land acquisition and relief acts and all that, and a whole lot of other issues which
we'll come to the specifics. Very quick reaction before I go to
for example, the BMS has also stood shoulder by shoulder with the left front organizations and opposed certain government's policies.
Absolutely.
So does that mean that the BMS has now started embracing the left ideology? So you can't buy that argument. The second is the RSS is an organization of the largest volunteer force. It crosses well over 1 million. Now, are you expecting that to be even compared to 7, 10, 15, 20 people who are extra constitutional authority and who brought Government of India to a standstill and destroyed almost the aspirations of 1 billion plus people in the name of National Advisory Council?
Okay. Smita, my specific question to you is, when you heard all the arguments, my question is, how interested is RSS, you think, in having control over this government? Do you think that, all these moves which they are making, the kind of meetings which they are having, is this aimed at something? Is there a plan there?
See, the RSS has a very definite worldview. And of course, if it has a government of its own ideology, it would like it to
See, this is a dream. This is a dream of them there which has come true.
Yeah. But having said that, I think there are 3 things that I would like to take up. One is we've been all talking about economic issues. The RSS's economic philosophy as articulated by the Swadeshi Jagran Manch is economic nationalism, which is sometimes seen as very close to the left, as Nalin just pointed out. Second is the Hindutva agenda. And the third is this belief in the collective. They don't believe in the personality cult. Okay? Now,
Collective leadership.
collective leadership.
That doesn't seem to exist anymore in the BJP.
As far as the Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi is concerned, of course, as far as Hindutva is concerned, he is Hindu, their Samrat. And there I don't think the RSS has a problem with him. He is the sort of the finest example of what they would have hoped. But as far as economic nationalism is concerned, it's not just this NDA government, even the previous NDA government. I remember once when Govt Acharya was the BJP General Secretary, I had asked him, I said, what is the economic philosophy of the BJP? And he had said, well, we have a left, we have a centre and we have a right. Very much like, in fact, the Congress.
In the Congress, yes.
Yeah. So that tension, I think, will continue. And obviously, the Swadeshi Jagran Manch and all these other organizations will want to influence this government. And they even during Vajpayee's time, these meetings used to take place. Now there is more focus. Perhaps it's more sort of upfront.
No, is there, because for last 10 years we have seen a National Advisory Council having functioned in this country. To some extent, it did some work which has been appreciated. But the biggest problem about NAC was that it is a body without accountability. That was the charge against them.
Yeah, it only had recommendatory powers.
It had recommendatory powers, but it was, yes.
Because it was headed by Mrs. Gandhi, who was the president of the Congress party, and also the person who could have become Prime Minister if she had so wished, it had certainly more weight. The NAC also reflected a certain economic philosophy, which was, it had a social welfare agenda. And I think the imprint of that was felt all through the 10 years. People may want to say that, it paralyzed the government, but it also defined that government, I think.
It also gave some defining laws also.
Yeah, defining laws. Some of it not so good, some of it certainly very good. And I think that many of those programs, the NDA has taken on board, just changed their names.
Exactly.
So it's not like really that anybody disagrees with those programs. So paralysis was not because of the programs. Paralysis was because of the manner of
governance. Professor Pant, if that is the case, there has been some good, would you agree that there were some good things which happened under the NAC, there were some bad things which had happened under the NAC? So how will you see the difference between the NAC and this kind of an arrangement which is happening?
I think there is a world of difference. I think Vinod Bhai very kindly said that he is thinking that he is persuaded by Nalin, but I have absolutely no qualms about admitting that Nalin doesn't have a very difficult job at his hand. He doesn't have to work very hard at persuading. Most of us would agree that NAC was a creature of Sonia Gandhi to give her a position which gave her control without any responsibility and blame. And I think Smita has said something very, very correctly, that as far as RSS is concerned, perhaps, it is not the monolith which we are conditioned to think about it. It is a left, right and centre. It also has a million-strong force of volunteers, youngsters who have aspirations of their own, who do not necessarily follow the seniority principle that if the senior leader says yes, the Prime Minister will shut up. So I think the great difference is, and Vinod Bhai does make a very interesting point about the alliance government, and without any disrespect to Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji, I would submit that the Modi phenomenon is a very different phenomenon of a different time. RSS has changed. RSS is not, to my mind, I have no inside knowledge, not the same cadre-based scout camp kind of a mentality which it originated in. Like Congress Party, that also has changed. Congress Party the great Indian Congress Party did not begin as a family fiefdom. Unfortunately, it ended up as well.
But Mr. Professor Pant, my question is this: if we all are now saying that the NAC was a body which had authority but no accountability, what do you think that RSS leadership having these kind of meetings with the government, ministers and things, would it not be the same thing?
Two interesting things. your original question, I remember, permit me to answer that. The problem is I'm not in the business of balancing good and bad, because I think the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So what NAC did with good intentions, I would agree with Nalin, ended up with the country in a very hot place. That's number one. Number two, whether the same experience will be replicated with RSS, let's wait and watch. Thirdly, about what RSS is doing is interesting, which I think you should ask Mr. Mr. Mahajan. Was the advice offered or was it sought? That is the critical.
Let us get that. Mr. Mahajan, was this meeting sought by you people or was it sought by the ministers?
In fact, neither it was sought by us nor by the ministers.
That's interesting.
In fact, generally, these meetings are organized by respected RSS organizational heads.
Yes.
And
we are told that Suresh Soni and others were there.
This very meeting, as I have already said, that this meeting was for the better understanding, and therefore it is not at the behest of anybody. In fact, these meetings keep on taking place. Before the elections also, one such meeting took place, and after the election, yes, it was the first meeting.
But Mr. Mahajan,
it was not organized either by the
so it just happened.
Or by
the meeting was neither organized.
Organizations.
So the meeting was neither organized, was not sought for, was not sought for, but it just happened. I'll come to you, Nalin, before that quickly.
You see the way the RSS and all its organizations, including the BJP, works, whether during elections or at any other time, they have regular meetings amongst the various bodies. So to that extent, I think he's right. It may not have been sought by either.
It's part of please give us clarity on this.
No, Smitaji is putting it correctly and fairly. It is, you see, the interaction and meeting takes place regularly. Now, if I am, for example, a person available for 2 or 3 days in Delhi, it is possible that out of 20 people who may be meeting on a particular time, it may be a few people who are holding office either within the party or the government or both. So therefore, it would be seen, oh, it's a conclave. It's not a conclave. A conclave or a specific agenda-driven interaction is going to be very different in nature because it would be a set of demands or a set of things. That is not how it is. People will meet, and why don't? If I tomorrow meet on a minister, it doesn't mean I'm going with a set of demands.
Nalin, so what are you trying to say? That these meetings are just in the
continue.
1 second. These meetings are in the nature of consultations.
No,
there are no directions. You don't expect the government to act to these things.
No, I will answer it.
Act on these things.
I will answer it. The interactions that take place, because there are people who are also from the RSS and within the BJP. There are people who have been, members of the RSS. They continue. There's an ideological linkage. Hold on. So therefore, from this perspective, people do meet and interact on regular interactions. It's also understanding. For example, what is the government doing? If the government can be interacting, say, with the media, the government can also, or people within the government who are holding office, may want to interact with the party, may want to interact with also the ideological organization. Say, this is what we are doing. It's about also sharing. It could also be completely not related to government functioning. So therefore, I think we tend to narrow it down to an agenda which becomes incorrect.
Okay. Vinod, what should we, if you are you persuaded by Nalin Kohli again?
Or is he thinking about being persuaded?
I make a lot of effort, but at the end of the day, my wiser counsel prevails. You see, my point is very different. You see, most of this discussion has been focused on economic issues. You see, please.
Today's meeting was with Smriti Irani. It was on the HRD ministry. Obviously,
so we must discuss the meeting with Smriti Irani as well.
Yes.
I think that the real RSS agenda, where there is scope, I mean, is in the Ministry of Culture, in the Ministry of Human Resource. It's there in appointment of bureaucrats. It is there in the appointment of governors, constitutional authorities. It suits very well that a governor should not be having an active political life lately. So you put an RSS man there. Now, here is an RSS. I mean, the pretension
what is the problem in putting an RSS man?
You see, the problem is that the social agenda of the RSS.
But a political agenda of the Congress is okay.
There is no consensus in this country on the social agenda of the RSS, as has been proved by the by-elections and in UP and the elections in Maharashtra, where no divisive issue was raised mercifully by anyone, including the Shiv Sena. So I think that the real problem is with the social agenda of the Rashtriya Swayansemak Sangh, where BJP tends to go along with it because they very conveniently can say, if there is a 84 Kosi Yatra, oh, it is the Vishwa Hindu Parishad which is doing. BJP is not.
Quick comment.
No, you see, you can't be playing, Jekyll and Hyde. You can't be playing two people while you are one actually.
So, Nalin, that's a serious charge. That's a charge which you people have been facing for decades now.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll probably face it for the next few decades too. It doesn't matter.
Jekyll and Hyde, and whenever it's convenient, you will say that we are all part of RSS. Whenever it's not convenient, you'll say we have nothing to do with RSS. This we have heard time and again.
Let me answer that, and it's my last comment because I'll have to move.
Yeah,
well, first of all my father and I can agree and also disagree. That doesn't mean I'm going to be Jekyll and Hyde with my father because I agreed with him sometimes and didn't agree.
It's not about...
everybody has a right to agree or disagree on something that is dear to them. And that is part of human interaction, number one. Number two, for those who choose to believe, to see how this is we have been victims of a certain agenda to paint us in a particular way. The BJP is like this, the RSS is like that. Now, those who will continue to paint will see it till perpetuity. That's okay. We can all celebrate differences, but that doesn't mean that is correct. So we are in our rights to absolutely reject it too.
No, finally, before I let you go, so you think that these kind of meetings are something which will happen in future also, and we need not be worried about them. It is, and you're also saying that it is not just a cosmetic exercise.
Well, okay. Well, look, it can be anything, and I'm saying when you start comparing. Well, hold on. Interactions will take place. Interactions will always take place within the party and the government, the party and the RSS and the government and external agencies, the government and foreign agencies. That doesn't mean somebody is following an agenda. The government will follow only one agenda, which as the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, is going to have an agenda of how he sees the government should deliver the aspirations of India.
Absolutely.
That is the government's agenda. The government can consult, meet with anyone, but the agenda of the government is the government's.
The last word will be with Mr. Narendra Modi. Yes, thanks for joining us, Nalin.
No, what I was saying is that we should not be surprised that they are following the RSS agenda. They are all RSS
we are not surprised.
men.
No, the
there
question
are two
is,
general secretaries inside the BJP.
Absolutely.
One who's the ex-RSS spokesperson.
No, the Prime Minister of India says that everybody takes pride in, all Prime Minister of India, the party president, they all take pride in saying that we are from the RSS.
But to get to something that Vinod said, which is, I think, I agree with him entirely, that is what is going to concern us most. This economic battle that will continue, that economic battle was there in the Congress.
Right.
But it is an agenda in culture, it is an agenda in education, it is the fact that Vishwa Hindu Parishad, Bajrang Dal and all these organizations are going to grow and flourish across the country.
That is when
there will be,
you think that is when the question
violence.
of accountability will come in.
Yeah,
you think that is when
they will then say
will you agree with that?
That's another organization. That's
the question of accountability. See, what is this whole question? When we are trying to compare what is happening with the NAC, and the charge against NAC was that it was an organization without accountability. Whether we are going to see the same kind of thing with this kind of intervention is the question.
No, Girish, I'm really not worried about that. The question is very much there. But I think if the problem is getting apprehensive and worried about the social agenda of BJP, I think we have very little faith
of the RSS.
In the RSS, very little faith in the maturity of the Indian young generation. If we keep talking about the syncretic Indian tradition cultural, and if we think it is so fragile that RSS brainwashing in a 5-year period can undo everything, then I think we are not being very...
I think on that hopeful note, we will end this program. Sorry, Mr. Mahajan, I couldn't come back to you. There will be many more days where you can come and express your views. But this is a thing which will wait and watch. As Professor Pant earlier said, that how this whole exercise will and what it will lead to is something we'll have to wait and watch. Thanks to all my guests, Professor Pant, Smita Gupta, Vinod Sharma and Ashwani Mahajan and Nalin Kohli who joined us earlier. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue in the big picture same time tomorrow.